Welcome to the Monarch Files, weekly breakdown of each episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, part of the Watching Now series on Couch Soup at couchsoup.com and Couch Soup on YouTube. On the task force, we have Brandy.
Hello.
Tom.
What up?
And guest Godzilla fan Alex McCumbers.
Ahoy there.
Ahoy. Welcome, Alex.
Man, I love Godzilla.
Yeah.
This is a great day.
It's a good day. And also, of course, me, Dan Morris. I'm your host, but nobody cares. So we're going to move on.
We care, Dan.
It was very adamant that nobody cared last time.
Hey, it's okay. We've changed in a week. We love you, Dan.
Sure. Anyway, I'm glad that Alice can join us because I know that you are also a very large Godzilla fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really excited to bring in some more really passionate Godzilla fans that like myself. Tom here is kind of I think, sort of, I don't know, something to do with
Big Monkey.
Yeah. I was not going to say it. I was not going to say it.
I enjoy some Godzilla entertainment now and then. However, have not watched all of them.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Even I haven't watched all of them, I don't think. Most of them.
I have.
You have watched more than me, I can guarantee that.
Yeah. Anyways, this week we got episode 3, Monarch Legacy of Monsters, Secrets and Lies. So let's kick things off with our non-spoiler first impressions for this episode.
Screw the cliffhanger. Like, seriously. But it was a really good episode. I really enjoyed it. I am loving the action sequences. I'm enjoying the mysteries. I want to know more. I have to know more. So I'm in it. I'm in it.
I agree. This is where I think the show really is starting to come into its own. And I hope that it maintains this level of like pace and excitement, because a lot of the first 2 episodes was a lot of build up, getting to know the characters, obviously. But this one, like, we're really starting to figure out like, no, Monarch is kind of everywhere and they're really messing with a lot of things in this world. And so I'm excited to see like where they take that mystery and how that maybe affects other Monsterverse properties.
I enjoyed the episode. However, I was more engaged with the first 2. I feel like this episode had a lot of big moments. I was like, damn, these are cool, but it didn't feel as consistent to me. And I enjoyed the pacing of episodes 1 and 2 more so. But like, yeah, and also like, fuck the cliffhanger as well. But yeah, that was my main takeaway, was just like, these are really cool moments, but I'm not as engaged, but still enjoyable, if that makes any sort of sense.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, especially from your perspective, I think I can understand what you're getting at. For me as well, there's a lot of like big oh shit moments in this episode that really struck with me as a longtime Godzilla fan. We'll get into that when we get into the spoiler section, but that was like really cool for me to see some of those bits come back in this show the way they did. And yeah, the cliffhanger sucks, but man, it's got us waiting with bated breath for the next episode to come and see that resolution of everything it built up to. So I'm pretty happy with that episode. I think it's one of the better, stronger ones of the 3 that we've gotten already.
I would agree with that. Yep.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our spoiler review. So this episode opened up on where the last episode closed, where Kate, Kentaro, and May are talking to 2015 Shaw in that Monarch holding facility. I don't really know what else to call it.
Retirement home.
Yeah.
Old people home.
Yes.
With ankle shackles.
Monitors and cameras everywhere that don't listen.
Yeah. So Shaw,
pretty, though.
It was very pretty. It had all that like Zen garden action going on everywhere.
The pruning.
So Shaw asked them if they really want to know what happened to their dad, because he doesn't believe any of the Monarch truths, lies, whichever they are. And they hop into the minivan that they used to get there. Shaw, of course, saying that he's going to drive, but he doesn't know how to start a push button car, which, you know, that was some good humor.
It's a really funny bit.
Yeah, that part was pretty good. Like, how do you start this thing?
Like, holy crap, he's driving. Shit.
Which was a great line, too.
Yeah.
When Kate said something about his driving, and he's like, you should have seen your grandmother's.
Yeah.
Some interesting little like shuffling. They're doing flips and spins with this little minivan that's like, yeah, I don't think you can get away with doing that with a little minivan like that, but whatever, it's fun.
No, that attitude.
They finally get out of there, and you get the close-up shot on Shaw where he's just smiling a big grin because he's found his freedom. There's a really cool transition shot there, but before we get into that, do you guys have any other thoughts or remarks on that scene?
For me, this was the start of where I like reinforced a bit more why I think that Shaw is the actual grandfather. Because, well, for one, he said Hiroshi's more of a son than a nephew to me, so I'm like, you're hiding something there. And the fact the way he was interacting with Kate, even Kentaro, felt more like, I'm your grandpap. I'm going to tell you what to do because your pap, he's a bit of a dick, but like, I'm going to help him. And I don't know. It felt more of a familial family bond than just like I knew your parents one time sort of deal. That was my big takeaway. And I did like that transition as well, but I think you want to get into that later, so we'll leave it for now.
I like the idea of there being like these really important people that they just don't want to keep out and about. And so Monarch has the ability to like control these people by giving them a really good deal. Like, hey, you can go retire in one of our facilities. You're going to be watched all the time, but at least it's going to be exceptionally peaceful and you'll be cared for. And it's also interesting that Shaw just like has an exit strategy. As soon as the kids show up, he's like, all right, today's the day. Let's do this.
Like, let's go.
Yeah, it feels more like a prison than anything. I would hate it. But like, he's one of the founding members of Monarch. Like, there's got to be something more that they're keeping him under wraps for. Like, there's something else.
Because he mentioned that he mentioned it was no longer what they started it as. So it could have been like after Keiko and Randa went away, people kind of came in, and because he's not a scientist, doesn't know stuff. Like, cool, we're going to do this. This is what you want, right? And he goes, no. They go, all people home.
Mm-hmm.
You're going
corporate
into
greed.
The letter that you see, I think in episode 2, that it's like the letter for him to go to the retirement place, and it's like it's all like, you've been voluntold to retire.
Yeah. It's interesting that Hiroshi had that letter, but whatever. Yeah, another little tidbit that maybe that's his dad.
Right before we get into that transition, there's a great shot where they're driving away and Mount Fuji's in the background. That's a great shot because Mount Fuji shows up in a lot of Godzilla iconography. And so it's cool to like see that element of Japan again. And this is a very Japanese oriented show. So the setting is definitely doing wonders for it.
I actually audibly was like, ooh, Mount Fuji, as soon as
he did say that.
In that exact time, just, ooh, Mount Fuji.
Yeah.
Are you guys doing group watches? That sounds like fun.
We live together.
Yeah, they live together.
That'll do it. That'll
Alex
do it.
Doesn't know that. So yeah, moving on. There is this amazing transition shot that I think only works in this show because they have Wyatt and Kurt Russell. They have almost the exact same face, so they have this amazing fade transition from Kurt's face to Wyatt's face, and it's like they locked it in on the jaw. Yeah. Like you can,
it's
see
perfect.
The jaw line as they transition from 2015 to 1954, where we catch up with Shaw, Keiko, and Randa a few years after where we saw them last, and they're now waiting for a general to come, where they're going to propose a plan to basically kickstart this investigation into a giant footprint that they found. So they go into the hangar, they're showing off this giant footprint, which is presumably Godzilla's. The general is obviously taken aback by it, and they propose this plan of luring out this giant creature with 150 pounds of uranium. And the general has this comment about how that's equal to the bombs they dropped on Japan. Keiko is clearly upset by that statement.
Mm-hmm.
And
like Ranger Impact.
Yeah, and he, like, you can see it in the general, so he kind of has this little like, yeah,
whoops,
I'm sorry, and like,
uppy days.
Yeah, I kind of appreciate that they had that moment, that they allowed the general to realize, like, ooh, that was a little insensitive.
There's a lot of Keiko squaring up against a lot of different authority figures in the show, and I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, that's right. And then the trio explains how they believe the Titans feed on radiation. And that they can use it to lure him out. Then the general is finally swayed by Shaw when he tells them that the creature of this size would be an existential threat to global security, which is kind of like the nail in the coffin that gets the general to approve their plan.
Do we
And
want to
not
touch
the
on
teleportation.
The years here? Oh, right.
Not
Miranda.
That was a funny bit.
Aliens.
As far as the year, I did say it's 1954. What are your thoughts on that, Alex?
That's a significant year and it's a good year.
It
so
very
they say
much
that's-
is. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the year that the original Godzilla film was put out. And so 1954 is like a big number for a lot of this franchise. And so it's cool that we're actually getting storylines within that context.
Yeah. And that even goes back to the Godzilla 2014 movie when Serizawa is showing the Monarch footage and he references the test in Bikini Atoll in 1954. And he's like, those tests weren't tests.
They mentioned Serizawa somewhere in this episode, I think.
They did.
Yes, we're getting to that.
I have one that is something that annoys me greatly.
Okay.
Do it.
So, at the end of last episode 2, we had that cliffhanger of them with the dragon on the launch in the Philippines. And this time it just kind of skips over that. It's like just they're fine, they make it through. That fucking annoys me because I'm like, don't leave me a cliffhanger and then just blue ball me. Like, show me at least show them getting away. It could be like a 2-second thing where like, oh, cool dragon. And even if he fucks off, it's like, wow, that was crazy. That's all I need. Because now I'm like, did they fight the dragon? Did they kill it? Did they just, jerk it off? I don't know.
That's a good point.
And it frustrates me. And it's something that I hope that doesn't continue is with the
That's going to be the start of the next episode too.
I swear to God, like, because it annoys me. I hope to God that they don't go the way of the past is just, oh, we're going to go to different time periods. And like, if it matches up with the present day, sure. But it still annoys me great because like it doesn't feel like the past is as consistent in storytelling. It's just like, here's bits and pieces. And if they're going to do parallel stories, commit to it. And
maybe it'll come back though. Further down the line. Maybe they'll do another flip back to the dragon scene. And maybe after the series is done, there's a way, if you were to cut all the different scenes from the different time periods together, they would be one long, consistent storyline.
Yeah, but like, I feel like that would annoy me even more because it's like, you could have just done this from the fucking beginning. Jesus.
It's fun to mess with audiences that way, though.
Yeah, I like that dragon scene because it changes their perspective on reality. And I've been thinking about this a lot because I recently watched the anime, not the old anime of Berserk, where whenever they meet one of the giant monsters for the first time, they're like, oh no, demons are real. And it completely changes their whole perspective on life. And so that's kind of what happens here in this show is they're like, oh, everything we thought was probably correct. And now we need to address that in this fashion. The other thing that I'll mention about this footprint is that every time I see a footprint in a Godzilla film, it makes me think of the TriStar Godzilla film, the 98 one in America, right? And so there's that classic scene where they're standing in the footprint and the shot pulls out and he's like, what are we looking at here? And
he doesn't know what he's standing in a footprint.
Here. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, where
also, how'd they move this?
But also, where did they get it?
Cut it out.
It is in sections. I see that now because I've got it loaded up here on the side. They sectioned it off somehow.
Okay.
There's clear cut lines.
Answers.
Like, idea that they could have done to resolve the cliffhanger. Have the dragon fly away because they hear something roaring, then they go find it. It's like, oh, it's a footprint. That's it. Then you could cut to 2 years later. And I would be like, cool, that paid off the cliffhanger.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was like maybe a deleted scene or something. They're like, oh no, we got to cut this episode down to 42 minutes instead of 50 minutes. So
that's another fucking thing.
That's a good way to resolve it though, and would give us the immediate like vicinity of there's multiple monsters and territories and stuff.
Then would lead into like how they know Godzilla's path. It's like, oh, he's here, and because of these radiations, so we can track him into the next whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we can assume that.
Yeah, I mean, these are all little loopholes nice to see that, like, hopefully they're resolved because these are going to be the things that when the show is over and these aren't resolved, if they don't ever give us what we're asking for, those are going to be the things that we're going to be like, yeah, but it didn't do this, so we're kind of annoyed with that, and the show is going to ultimately like lose some faith in that respect.
Yeah, those are the nitpicks.
But also, like, again, 42 minutes. Why do they keep reducing time? I think Lily would agree with me that it's bullshit.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Like,
I couldn't justify what that reasoning is.
Next week is 41.
Yeah.
You'd be
shorter. The last episode is a 3-hour spectacular. Let's go.
Bring it.
Right.
It's the Snyder cut of Godzilla episodes.
Oh God.
So next part is an interesting one. It's kind of like a pretty, like, not a lot happens for the most part, but it's 2015 again. We've got Shaw, May, Kate, and Kentaro. They're on a ferry in the minivan. May is questioning Shaw about his age, saying that he must be 90 years old. And he shrugs it off and says, it must be good genes. But then we started to think about it. It's like, wait a minute. We see him in the 50s where he's 20, 30 years old, give or take. Now we're in 2015, which is 70 years later. Like, okay, he is actually probably in his 90s, at least. So then it's like, what is going on? Like, how is he as young looking, as capable, as mobile? Like, granted, there's some spry 90-year-olds out there, but he's looking pretty good for 90.
Well, the retirement package comes with a great nutritional program.
I'm sure.
Right?
Modern medical advancements.
This is what started to lead us to the theory that his involvement with Monarch possibly got him some sort of advanced medicine. Possibly, because that's what they were talking about when they were researching Titans to begin with. And the starting of Monarch was looking for like cures to cancer, different medicine, alternative energy sources. Like there were all these things they were trying to investigate. So now it's like, is Shaw like the recipient?
A product of that, yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't even pick up on this at all. I'm glad you elaborated on it because it was right over my head.
It went over my head the first few episodes because I was like, oh yeah, he's pretty old, but I didn't like put a thought into it beyond that.
Well, it could be that he just has, like I said, good genes and it's just a throwaway. But it could also be a reason why they keep him under lock and key. Like another reason.
I was going to say that leans into that theory. Why?
It does like, I think I'd be fit.
If you think about Randa back in the 70s in like Skull Island, he was looking pretty old. So that was the 70s. So
yeah, that is the same character, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I haven't seen Skull Island since GVK came out. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Randa is from like the John Goodman character from Skull Island.
Oh, got it.
He's also the first one to see both Godzilla and Kong as well. I've realized that as well. He's the first one to see them both.
That's true.
But no, I'm 50-50 on that theory that he has like weird monarch medicine. Like it'd be interesting if that was the case because that just opens up the door to so many other things they could be doing. But I don't know.
Like they had him on lockdown. Like there's something else there. There has to be.
Unless
my conspiracy theory, my foil hat happening here.
Where's your whiteboard with string?
Right.
Yeah, bust it out.
I'm working on it.
I would have considered it a throwaway if they didn't reference his age multiple times.
Yeah.
True.
There's multiple references, and we're getting to those too. Next thing, the biggest part I think in this entire episode in the show so far, we go back to 1954. We're at the Bikini Atoll. And the scene sets up what to me is one of the best things that I've been hoping for out of anything and never thought I would ever see done. They basically reenact the moments from the Godzilla 2014 movie's opening credits, as well as the Monarch presentation that Serizawa does, where you see all the first footage of Godzilla doing the nuclear testing. And we get the bomb, which it's kind of an Easter egg because we actually see the bomb just like it was in the Godzilla 2014 movie. Exactly the same bomb with the same drawn image of what looks like Godzilla, even though none of those people had seen Godzilla yet.
So it's like a monster.
And then they have like the crossed out X on it, essentially. And that to me was just like goosebumps seeing that come together. And of course, in typical fashion, Randa, Keiko, and Shaw arrive. And they see that the military has brought a bomb, and Shaw goes to talk to the general and says, like, you know, we want to study this creature, not kill it. And the general, in the very military-esque way, is like, well, you asked for the army's help. This is it. This is how we do things. And expresses like how much he had to go through to get the uranium. This is probably one of my favorite scenes / setups for the follow-up scene in the show so far.
Would agree with that. It is definitely like one of the strongest. It's got a lot of elements. It's got the historical background. You get to see all the things from that opening credit sequence you were talking about. And then, of course, it shows Godzilla and it shows people interacting with Godzilla in the first fashion. And also kind of points to like why he's pretty strong whenever we see him in 2014. He's all juiced up on that good radium.
Yeah. The armor, like the interesting, like, why does he have that armor? And like Keiko was like, to protect him from us, basically. And I was like, yeah. Like it was just the shot up his tail and his back. And I was like, ooh, loved it.
That looked really good for TV as well.
Yeah.
Really good for TV.
Yeah, all the monsters look pretty good for a television show, don't they? I think the show is like nicely produced overall.
Oh yeah. It
The
looks
overall quality
great.
is fantastic.
Yeah.
There was another line in that scene that I wanted to shout out again because there's another part that feels very atypical for military personnel within TVs and movies. Like the first scene with the general acknowledging Keiko's discomfort, as well as in this shot, the general actually says, "I understand this isn't what they want," referencing the scientist. Like the fact that he's even aware and cognizant of that at all is a whole nother level of writing when it comes to like your atypical like military general type in a TV show. And I appreciate that little fact is that I think it makes it a little bit more human. It makes it a little less like the military is just this blanket sheet of awfulness. You know?
Less robotic.
Right. Like kill all the things.
Just kill it.
Kill
Kill it all.
Just kill it.
Kill all
And it's
the
like
things.
he's just
fuck
like,
science.
I only have 1 star. Like, you know, there's so many other like levels up that I had to go, kind of.
It's like this is like the best I could do for you, and like you just deal with it.
Yeah.
All right. So then back in 2015, we see May is talking on the phone with an unknown person, and she's talking about coming back soon. We don't know who she's talking to. We don't know exactly why she's talking to this person. And then you realize that she's using an old like flip phone that she then tosses into the ocean. And like, oh, okay, that was a burner phone. And Kentaro's there and confronts her. And she's definitely upset about everything that's happened and getting dragged along into all this. And then it cuts to Shaw. Shaw's talking about everything that he's been having to do to get them where they're going. And then we get to Pohang in South Korea, where they're going through customs. This is kind of like a silly-ish little scene where he's doing the back and forth, like, oh, we're in this
He's like,
line.
I need to be in line too.
Because we see line 1 for South Korean passports and line 2 for foreign passports.
Do you speak English? You know, backpack.
There's definitely some good, funny dialogue in this bit. And the ultimate come around of that is when they are getting escorted off into an armored car. And you've come to find out that one of these guards is a friend of Shaw's. And he bashes him in the ribs and then pushes the other guy in the truck. And Shaw says about like, you can't pull your punches. He's like, you got to make it look real, man.
Yeah. I love how Kate's just like, you're such an asshole.
Fucking dickhead, Jesus Christ.
I like
Again,
having them like
Shaw had an exit strategy.
Oh yeah,
this was a part of the plan.
He had this all planned out.
Like he's playing chess, everyone else is playing checkers. Like he's just like,
yeah. You got to imagine he's probably been plotting this for years, especially if he's been in that home since the 70s. Like he's been ready for this for a while.
It's the monster genes, the good genes.
Those monster genes keeping me young. Which again, this is another reference to.
Sorry, let me go get my
age.
tinfoil hat again.
I've never seen Godzilla in a pair of jeans. Just like denim jeans. It's like I have my monster
He's
jeans.
got the G cells. He's got some G cells in him.
He's got some G fuel.
Right.
Oh no!
Oh boy!
Cut to sponsor.
Bang, boom, monster.
Godzilla flavor. Try it now.
This episode of Monarch Files is brought to you by Monster Energy Drink. Feeling old and 90 years old? Have some Monster.
You run so fast and piss blood. Guaranteed.
Anywho, to wrap up this
Blood will
scene,
squirt out your nipples. What?
there's another reference to Shaw's age because Duho comments to him saying, "You look younger every time." So it's like, this is again, there's another like, oh, okay. Like, I'm assumingly he hasn't seen this person in,
couple decades,
40, 50 years. I don't know how long he's been cooped up in that place. But it's been a while. And again, I can't not think about the fact that they're referencing how old he may or may not be at this point.
It definitely made me think like, no, there's got to be something there. Those monster genes, like I said it.
My big thing from like that whole like section, besides it being funny with the South Korean stuff, was Kentaro. I still don't like him, and I still think he is so narrow-minded and he's still so selfish to a point where I'm just like, I hate you. I don't like you. Like Kate's cool. Like she's also selfish, but in a cool way. You're selfish in a dick way. Like, and you're trying to be like, oh no, I gotta keep files. And like you said, he was put on the spot and it was just like, I got nothing. It was like, yeah, eat shit, fucker. You don't know shit. I'm really sorry if I'm swearing way too much. I'll turn it back down a bit. Still don't like Kentaro. That was my main takeaway because he was starting to come around a bit to me, but then like with May, and he was like, "Oh, just go. It's my mess." It's like, yeah, but you put her in this mess, and she can't leave now because of you. So it's like, yeah, you tell him that, May.
Yeah, he's a bit of a stick in the mud right now, but I think maybe eventually he'll
come open up.
It's called character growth.
Yeah, and like
I hope so.
Kate's just kind of like, I hate everyone and everything because like my dad's a cheater. Like fuck all you people, you know.
Yeah,
and it's like
funny.
You obviously love your father, like it's obvious, but she's so pissed off that she just like hates everyone and everything right now. So it's just like, okay, she's gonna calm down a bit and relax, like her sphincter, and he's gonna have to do the same thing, like just let it go.
Yeah, I do hope we see growth on either side because obviously these characters are very flawed, and so it'd be interesting to see that come to fruition in some shape or form. And
May is a secret agent. I know that.
Yeah,
she's gotta be.
May, they're keeping May so like secretive.
Yeah.
Like we know so little about her.
She's like, I have my passport.
I kind of assumed she was just talking to her mom or her grandma or something.
On a murder phone?
Really like paranoid about being tracked. So she just
it was like a partner. It was like a partner or something, like a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever.
Could be.
Just had a thought though. What was the group in Godzilla 2 that was like trying to help Godzilla with like Ken Watanabe and all that stuff? Like they had like a separate group that wasn't Monarch. Maybe she's like in Japan for them.
I thought they were still Monarch in that. The ones that were trying to help them.
No,
because the bad guys in that movie were a different group of like a private military force. They were the ones that they took the lady doctor and they were using her to wake up all the other Titans. And then I believe it was my assumption, again, I have to revisit that movie, but I'm pretty sure it was Monarch who was chasing them, trying to stop them.
Okay. Well, maybe she's with the terrorists then.
What was the other character's name?
Which one? May or the Ken Watanabe guy? I forgot what character his name was.
Which one are you referring to?
Ken Watanabe, he's the actor, so I don't know what
you're
character.
About in the movie, that's Serizawa.
Mm-hmm.
He's Serizawa.
Okay. Is he the one that does the sacrifice at in King of the Monsters? Yeah,
because they were part of Monarch. He's one of the main assets. Him and his assistant, like the lady assistant who dies shortly before then.
He's a lead Monarch biologist, according to the Godzilla Phantom wiki.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's Monarch.
But there could be layers within Monarch of like people trying to do certain things, because clearly, like that one dude
Tim,
who in the next scene gets kind of womped on. He was trying to fulfill his own agenda.
Yeah, right. He's got his own thing going on.
And he's just some guy, right? Like, all sorts of these things happening.
We talked about that a little bit too. Tim. Like, what exactly is Tim working towards? Like, what's Tim's goal in all of this? So we get that scene with Tim and he's with his partner, Duval, and they're on an airstrip. There's this really ominous looking black jet that's like getting ready to offload. And then this woman walks off that I'm assuming, presumably, this is Verdugo, who was referenced in the first episode. That may or may not be true. This is purely presumptuous. That's because that's who they referenced in the original episode. She really quickly dismisses Tim and talks to Duval. And then Duval gets a call or message saying that they found Shaw and the kids, and then gets sent on a mission to go get Shaw.
Yeah, but first, who we assume is Verdugo, like pulls Tim aside and is like, are you like, why didn't you bring this to me or to Serizawa?
These are happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So like Duvall's getting the call about Shaw, while on the other side, Verdugo's talking to Tim, and she specifically says, why wasn't this brought to me or Dr. Serizawa?
Yeah.
So that means Serizawa and these people are working closely together at this point.
And Tim was doing his own thing. Like, for whatever reason, he's got this like agenda against, is it Shaw or is it against
Randa?
Yeah, like Hiroshi. Like, because as soon as he saw that, Kentaro was Hiroshi's kid, he's like, oh, shit. So.
Yeah, because it seems like a lot of what they're using as their motivation is, we want to prevent G-Day from happening again. And there's clearly a lot more to it than that.
Oh, yeah. There's some underhanded stuff of Tim.
Well, it could be that because in Godzilla 2, Monarch is trying to, because now it's Monarch, they were trying to find Godzilla and find other monsters. So maybe these files could lead them to some, and Tim's like, I do not want that. So he's kind of going against the Monarch in that way. Because
I think Tim just wants a promotion. I don't think he's bright.
Oh, that too. I was trying to find some good in him.
I mean, the Duvall's like, crazy understands crazy. So she straight up called him crazy.
It's true.
Maybe he's the one who starts the terrorist group.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, because you got to think how this show is taking place between Godzilla 2014 and then King of the Monsters, which is relatively 3-4 years later, I believe, if I remember correctly. So there could be a lot of events in this show that potentially lead up to or pertain to that, because by King of the Monsters, we know there are Monarch bases and facilities all over the world that are specifically set up where they know Titans are. To monitor them. So, I mean, that's maybe part of the Randa information, which we then later get there. We find that those Randa files have coordinates to different parts of the world. So maybe that's part of it.
He had the map in his office in the first episode. That could, I
wonder if that aligns with the map that we see in King of the Monsters. That'd be an interesting image comparison.
I'll have to look into that. I'll have to see and compare, and we'll keep connecting those red strings on the board.
That's what they want you to do. I just want to see Big Lizard do a big breath. That's it.
That's right. That's what we need.
He needs a real pain.
So, but then we do get the big payoff in this episode, which is in 1954 again, where everyone's on the beach. They're all getting ready and they're waiting, and they've got their, special glass goggles, and you get that shot of all these military folks sitting on the beach sipping Mai Tais, and nothing's happening, and everyone's starting to get impatient. But then you finally get the sonar pings, and the equipment starting to short out, and then they see the spikes coming up out of the water, and it's like, oh shit, here he comes.
It's the giant lizard.
So this turns into a complete full-on what this was like. All the reference footage from the Godzilla 2014 movie talking about the tests in the 50s. Here it is. We're watching it happen. We're part of it. And it's such a great build up in watching Godzilla coming up to the beach. Keiko and Randa watching along. Keiko starts to get very upset. She's saying like, this is wrong. We can't do this. Shaw has moved to try one last time to ask the general to stand down. Obviously, he's like, that's not going to happen. And this very dramatic shot of Keiko goes running to stop the bomb while you hear the countdown, which again, the countdown was even in the original movie leading up to the bomb's explosion. But the only difference here is we actually get to see Godzilla come up out of the water, and he looks at the bomb and he's just like, I guess that feels tasty.
Looks like a good snack.
Looks like a yummy little snack.
It reminded me of a puppy, like a giant scaly puppy going like, ooh.
It does have that bulldog look to him, doesn't it?
Got the nose.
Yeah, like just the shape of the nose and everything. It's just like, you feel like you'd be cute.
Yeah. Definitely
shrink it down a bit.
Where it is.
I want to pet him.
I used to think the 2000s Godzilla looked like a dog, and I wanted to pet him. Yeah, anyways, that's probably like one of the coolest things we've seen so far. You get this amazing, wonderful shot of Godzilla. It's completely fresh and new. You get that really cool shot of like riding up the back of his spines over the top of his head. And then, of course, the giant nuclear explosion with everyone getting knocked back. And
Nuclear.
Nuclear. Inside joke.
That shot reminds me a lot of
nuclear. It drives me nuts.
in Oppenheimer. Have you seen that?
No.
Yes.
All the military people just sitting in chairs watching explosions happen.
Yeah.
Like very similar here.
Yeah. With like the glasses and everything, they're all just like lying back, just like, we're in a safe distance. We're not going to get radiation
all
poisoning.
y'all getting cancer. Every single one of them.
They're all going to die of cancer.
They're all fucked.
The only thing I wish that happened in that scene, and I understand why they didn't do it, but I was really hoping that they'd have the drama, have Keiko like crying, like, what have we done? Oh no. And then like you look up and like, hey, he's still standing there. Shit.
Yeah,
that's how I wanted that scene to end, was everyone just like all the military people's faces just drop when they see him still standing
that would have been good.
Yeah. That would have been good, but then it goes against 2014 then, because not many people knew about it. And if he was just chilling there, squaring up like, you try to bomb me, they'd be like, well, you're still alive, so we got to tell everyone now.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he probably just like had the explosion like, ooh, this is like a bit too spicy for me, and then went back into water.
That's a spicy meatball.
That's a spicy meatball.
Well, that's an interesting point, though.
Like that one bit back.
If you did that scene any differently, it kind of changes the context of how we get to the 2014 incident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think they had to do it that way to maintain sort of like, no, we are still in the same timeline.
I mean, even in the 2014 movie, they didn't know whether he was alive or dead. Like they didn't know that if Godzilla died. I mean, they were waiting for him.
I'm sure they assumed he did.
Yeah, they assumed he was dead.
It's interesting how that movie gets better and better with added context, even though it wasn't that great of a movie. Like it's fine, but they just built upon it in a really smart way.
Yeah, I'm trying to think it now too. Even watching the show, I start to wonder if this was all established back then when they first were planning this movie and putting this together. I'm wondering if they're just doing a really good job of pulling strings out of the original script, or if they were actually like some people at Legendary were like, okay, we need to have these elements and these elements so that we can have an overarching universe that keeps going forward for decades.
I mean, maybe.
I think it's more like what the prequels and sequels for Star Wars have been doing, where like there was the trilogy of movies and now like they're just filling in gaps with like series and stuff. So like it feels like it's always planned, but it's really not. And they're just kind of going with it.
Just clever.
And, like, I think after this series, I think at least I'll go back and watch like Godzilla 1 and King of the Monsters and be like, does this make it feel better? Or like, does it make it flow and fill in all the gaps that like, at least I had when I first watched them. So I like that point as well.
Make you appreciate that original movie more. I mean, I still love the hell out of that movie, but I see, because I know it's definitely has its shortcomings.
Too many people, not enough monsters.
That's how they all are, though. All of them.
King of the Monsters.
King of the Monsters was good.
There's so many monsters.
Still a lot of people, though. Anyways,
but I love Serizawa. Like he's my fave.
So, back in 2015, we're on Air Duho.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he said that. He called it Welcome to Air Duho.
Welcome.
Shaw is talking about Hiroshi. He's explaining some things to the kids about who Hiroshi was. Like, yeah, he was a normal guy. And they're like, yeah, that's a typical, psychopath or sociopath. And there's this key line that he says that, this is a secret, not a lie. And Kate's like, they sound awfully similar. It's like, it's basically the same thing. And then May is talking about some of the data that she's going through and finds that there were coordinates that lead to Alaska, which then Shaw's able to work out like, oh, I know where this is. I know how to get to Hiroshi now. So we're going to go this way instead. Pretty much just a quick little like filler scene. Like, okay, they know where they need to be. So they've changed.
Time in this show, they've mentioned cryptids, which means that if they want to do something on a smaller scale in the Monsterverse, they could. Because they've mentioned Bigfoot and the Yukon Yeti.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, even all the small monsters they've introduced in these 3 episodes, you could do stuff based off them as well. Just like here's these little cryptids. Basically, you can make I don't know mini-series or like YouTube shorts where it's like here we're investigating monster XYZ and we're in the middle of the Amazon. And
I don't want a Monarch spinoff about Bigfoot though. Please don't.
Well,
do that.
You just don't know how good it could be.
I think there's promise there.
Yeah, I feel like Alex is onto something.
What's that?
It's just
What's
because
that
you like
movie with
hairy
the two?
things.
It's like the Frankenstein's monster versus Gargantua or whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm.
Yeah,
I'd rather
it's
have
one
a
of those.
spin-off show where they're trying to find it like Angelus or something. Like, let me get another Toho verse monster.
Well, if we're talking about spin-offs, I'd want one about Ghidorah. Ghidorah's cool.
Ghidorah is cool. He's
a
very
cool
cool in King of the Monsters.
Yeah.
That's where I thought this was going as well with Alaska. And I was like, oh, it's snow. Is that where Ghidorah
That's
is?
what I
in,
thought
like,
too.
in
Yeah.
But then no, he's in like
Possible.
the Antarctica or something like that
Antarctica,
instead.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I just one last thing before how the it's a secret, not a lie. Keiko said the exact same thing, which means he borrowed it from her, which means they got together at some point.
I was going to say that as well, too, that Keiko says that same line about not mentioning lies and secrets and them being different, you know?
Yeah.
Which is the next scene, literally the next
There's a
scene.
distinction.
That, you know, Keiko and Randa are discussing the bombing. They are upset that they ended up doing a bombing when that's not what they intended to do. And Shaw comes to tell them that Monarch is now fully funded because of the proof of Godzilla, essentially. And then they discuss like what that's going to mean for Monarch going forward. And that's where the lies and secrets factor comes in. Because like you said, Keiko basically says the same line, which Shaw then repurposes, you know, 70 years later. So,
yep.
And that's what we call love, folks.
Love.
I like this scene a lot. The fact that the army's like, oh no, we're going to give you as much money as you want.
Blank check.
Yeah, you can have anything
There you
you
go.
want to like make sure this doesn't happen.
That makes
It
me
was the
wonder,
promise
though.
that there's more.
Yeah.
Yes,
they still
absolutely.
fuck it
But it
up.
also makes me wonder with the canon timeline of this is 1954. The government's giving them a blank check. Fast forward to 20 years on Skull
In the
Island.
70s, yeah.
Monarch is washed up, and Randa is begging for support.
Well,
So,
that would
like-
be like either like changing government, or it could be they did have all that money, but then they didn't have anything to show for it for that long.
Probably
yes.
because the whole, like what Shaw was saying, like, tell me what I need to know.
Yeah, that
Basically.
could be it. There.
So they're probably keeping a lot of it under wraps. Like they've got all
That's
these sites that they're not going to tell the government about because they don't want the government destroying these titans.
That's true. They could have
The
been
way they
blowing
did
all that
Godzilla.
money and not telling the government, and then the government's like, well, this is just a big waste of money, so we're not going to keep
You've
funding
got-
you.
Well, they said that in Skull Island. Like where's all this? Like you've spent all this money. There's nothing to show for it.
It could also
Not only
be,
that, but America had major wars in
Well,
between
yeah.
those
Right.
events, so they spent a lot of money anyways.
yes, that's just a minor detail. Doesn't matter whatsoever. What I just thought, because we know Keiko's dead because, you know, roaches. Maybe after that, Randa kind of went into like a frenzy, spending all this money trying to figure stuff out. Maybe he was researching to bring people back with monster DNA, and he dumped all that money, and that's where Shaw was like, all right, peace. Because then Shaw's not in Skull Island or referenced at all, which probably because he wasn't thought of. But that could be why they're out of money and why the government's like, do we even trust you anymore? Which is why he
Maybe
had to
Keiko
beg.
survives that, and that's why he's trying to like get those monster cells or something to like rebuild her body.
I was
'cause there's not much
adamantly
left
shut
or
down
something.
when I made the notion of Keiko surviving that attack.
Yeah, well, because she fell from a decent height into a bed of evil baby
whatever.
roaches. If you're not going to get killed by the fall, you're going to get eaten from babies.
And then a bigger fish shows up and goes, man,
Yeah.
and all the roaches scatter.
Could be, you know.
There's always a bigger fish.
Ways you could do it.
Yeah.
So what happens?
Baby crunchy roaches.
Crunch, crunch, nom, nom. Like those little like snacky things in the bags.
Slimy yet satisfying.
That was Brandy's motto for episode 2.
Yes.
So to close out this episode, there's a long string of events that ultimately ends up in this massive payoff. But at the beginning of it, I want to mention something small. So in the beginning, it starts with Kate sitting adjacent to Duho, and she's upset about her father and whether or not she wants to see him, if he's still alive or if he's dead. And Duho gives her kind of like this fun little pep talk, and you're like, man, Duho is a really cool dude. I like this
Love
guy.
him.
Mhm.
And then the plane hits some rough weather, and Shaw takes control and starts flying the plane. But the thing I want to mention here is a quick line with Kentaro when he points out the window and says, "What's that down there?" And everybody goes, "Huh, what?" Nobody's paying attention to that. But you actually see in the window, somewhere off in the distance, is a small, what looks like explosion that he sees. And then this can't be nothing.
Yeah, I missed that part the first time, but when he went back and watched it, like he was like frame by frame, and I'm like, oh yeah, there is an explosion in that.
Was it an explosion or like a reflection of like a lens sort of deal?
It looked like an explosion.
It looked like the mountain moved. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah.
It's like there's like a quadruped thing, so it could just be foreshadowing of the thing that's gonna pop up, or it could be another thing.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I wonder if Hiroshi.
I didn't zoom in on that shot or anything, but from like the clean shot as it is, it's just like an orange blur in the background through the window.
Okay.
So again, like I said, it looked kind of like an explosion, and he says, "What was that?" And was it Hiroshi trying to signal the plane? Was it foreshadowing for the monster or maybe a different monster? And this is going to lead into the closing of this episode. Is they land, they find the old plane that's been there for almost a year, but they also find a campsite and proof that Hiroshi is still alive. And then you get this moment with the siblings. So back to what you were saying, Tom, you were like, I don't know about this Kentaro, but there's this really tender moment between Kate and Kentaro when they realize their father lived. So they have a little bit of a turn.
Yeah.
At that scene.
I like that.
They were happy that he was alive, and they hugged, and it was awesome. Yeah.
By this point, I was like, okay, I'm in for the character drama, because a lot of this show has been, it's really just a character drama set within the context of a kaiju universe. And so I was like, oh, that's a neat idea. I like how they're filming it and stuff. But by we got to this point, I was like, all right, I'm in for the character drama too now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the deeper
I want them to find Hiroshi. Like, what the hell is going on?
I want it to be like a Jumanji situation where they find Hiroshi and he's just been living off of monsters, and like he's eating like
the beginning. You always see like these doubles. I wonder if he's like been cloned with monster genes.
Oh, your theory was ridiculous, Tom, and you can't take that.
When do we get
which one was ridiculous?
When do we get flying saucers in the Legendary Monsterverse?
When they're going to bring in aliens, because there's always aliens in the Japanese movies.
They wear nice jackets in Final Wars.
They watched way too much Matrix and just thought that's how people dressed.
Yeah.
What about the ones that like turn into roaches?
What?
She's talking about Godzilla versus Godzilla versus Gigan. They're giant roaches.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, that era was weird.
Oh yeah, all the 70s movies are bonkers. I referenced the Talking Godzilla too, which is also from that movie. We have a little cutaway to the Talking Godzilla in the last episode.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So, anyways, this tender moment is cut short because then we see Duho investigating the crash site. He finds a securing line and realizes this plane didn't crash, but rather it was attacked. So he was like, okay, something's wrong here. We need to go. And he warns everybody, and he's running back to the plane. And then, of course, the ground starts shifting, and it's like, oh, perfect timing. It's here now. And as Duo's getting the plane going, this big, crazy, spiky cat lion.
It's like a pangolin. An echidna face.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing pops out of the ground and has the ability to freeze things by like sucking. I don't know exactly what was happening.
Was it spitting?
It was sucking all the air out of the area, and that so you freeze from the outside in.
Oh,
no, it's freeze from the inside out.
Because there was definitely a sucking action happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed that as well. I was like, oh, so he's not breathing ice. He's like taking every single bit of oxygen out of the area to the point where it just freezes.
That makes sense. Yeah. So then, of course, we get that massive cliffhanger that we were all complaining about earlier, where the plane and our beloved Duho are now frozen and everybody's left to die.
And smushed. Yeah.
Yeah. He did squish the plane.
That thing is crazy looking.
Yeah.
That made me sad.
It's really unfortunate because Duho was such
amazing. An
element of light, and he brought a lot of humor to the group. So now we don't have that anymore. Maybe Shaw's funny. I don't know.
Yeah. Like they gotta bring him back, Shaw. Shaw, go give him some of your magic monster blood.
Yeah, your magic monster genes.
Give him your G Fuel.
So anyways, with that closing shot, this is kind of my theory that the explosion orange, whatever thing that Kentaro saw has something to do with what's going to happen next in the next episode, because how the hell are they going to survive that? They're stranded in the middle of nowhere without a plane and a giant monster staring down on them. Something or someone is going to intervene.
Well, like
I was just re-looking at that scene you're talking about, and I think it is just this thing. Because it's like you see the general silhouette of the pangolin creature, and then it like closes in the gap and makes it look like a mountain. And so it's either this thing or another thing, but it's clearly like a creature on the like sight line of the hills.
I'm gonna have to go look at that again.
Look at it closer.
Yeah. It does not look like an explosion in hindsight.
Okay.
Well,
But
maybe
you survive the picture now. Like,
either way, they're screwed.
Yeah.
Unless there's a bigger monster who eats the little monster.
Yeah.
Because like you said,
Munchies.
always a bigger fish.
Yeah.
Always a bigger fish.
But one thing I wanted to say before we move on again, when they were landing the plane and it was Shaw and Kate, and like they just like worked together and everything, that laugh after they landed against them, it's like, no, they're related.
They're related. Yeah.
And that was like my first reaction to it. My first thought was just like, yeah, no, she's no way related to Billy Rand, that loser. She's related to him.
It's a really good scene because they put the water on the dash.
He's like, take a shot or take a swig or whatever. And she's like, it's just water. He's like, yeah, okay, now put it up there.
This is going to
hold
help.
it. Don't move.
It's really clever. I like that whole sequence.
Yeah. It's like so that he had like a level.
Yeah, like an altitude.
Spend enough time and like looking at hills and mountains. You start especially if you're somebody who watches a lot of these movies, you start imagining like, what if you're driving down the road and the hill just like gets up, moves a bit, and settles back down. Yeah, it's just a big thing, right?
All right. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. So that it was more just foreshadowing.
It's a cool idea. Yeah.
All right. So if that's the case, then my assumption is going to be Hiroshi's going to pop up and do something to scare off that big bastard.
Yeah, he's got the torch.
Yeah, right.
Or it could,
stupid.
It could be like a sonic sound device sort of deal. Because if he lives underground, because it looks like he lives underground, they're probably sounds. So it's probably just like a loud noise thing, which could be made out of scrap.
I mean, it's like the King of the Monsters, where they're able to like do the roars, like they manipulate the sound of
that. Makes a lot of sense.
Titans, and you can, kind of tell them what to do or something like that.
I'd be really into that if Hiroshi showed up and like did a sound thing, and it's a prototype to what they use in King of the Monsters. That's a good idea.
That'd be an epic, like putting all the strings together kind of thing. Yeah. I just
want to know where the show's going overall. Like,
I know that's the beauty of the show is we have no idea. We have no clue where it's going.
There's no expectations, basically. So it's like,
right.
Yeah.
If I were to have a guess, I think it would lead directly into Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
I think it's them discovering that event is going to happen. That would be really interesting.
Well, that could also be what Hiroshi's trying to find out. In like trying to research as much as he can, and maybe he's heard of Ghidorah and is like, I can't let Monarch try and wake him up because
if he knows what Ghidorah is and finds out like the truth behind Ghidorah, but then ends up getting that truth gets buried somehow, like right, that would be good. That'd be good
because that is an apocalyptic event. Like a bunch of people are horrifically killed in King of the Monsters all over the world, and so that's like a major like firecracker moment for this world. And so it'd be interesting for him to like learn that the end is coming, and then Monarch saying like, we don't care, we don't believe you, we've got everything under control, it's fine. I feel like so it's that like struggle end of Rogue One type of situation where they're all screwed in the end.
Like I think how it turns out.
I think it also makes sense because Ghidorah, even though he wasn't in the first 2014 one, he's sort of like the main antagonist of all the others pretty much. Because he's teased at the end of Skull Island. He gets released in King of the Monsters, and then his brain is used for Mechagodzilla, or one of them. So it seems like maybe even if he's dead, like he's throughout, he's like the root cause of a lot of things. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's just all about trying to stop Ghidorah, fails King of the Monsters, and yada, yada, yada.
I feel like there should be a Ghidorah timeline here because they do mention that he like fell out of the sky. He's not from this world.
Right.
And so if you explore that in some shape or fashion, I think it could really add to just the context of that monster in general.
That's why I think like a Ghidorah series or Ghidorah, like something centered on him could be so interesting, because you wouldn't have to be on Earth. You could do like some either his first contact, or it could be like here's like this completely different take on this same universe, but like you get this whole new characters, new environments, and I think that could be really interesting, because I don't know if in previous Godzilla things you've seen much of Ghidorah besides he three-headed dragon, he bad. But like I've always been like
time travel element, one of them.
There's time travel elements, and Ghidorah historically in pretty much every classic Godzilla movie is a space monster that comes to Earth, and he's trying to take over the Earth, or he's being used by space. He's being sent by aliens to take over the Earth, but he's always a monster that is not of Earth.
Right, he's almost always like alien in some regard.
There's one random off movie where he's a defender of Earth, protecting it from Godzilla, but that one is like a one-off that is very unnatural, uncanny.
That's Astro Monster, I think, something like that.
Yeah, forget which one it is. I would think it's one of the '90s ones. It could be that like Destroy All Monsters kind of like remake where Godzilla's a bad guy, but we are going way off on like tangents.
Yeah.
Godzilla's three-headed dragons.
But no, Ghidorah is such a great take, and there's like, we were talking about this before as far as like where are they going with Monarch? What is the point of the show? Is it going to be a one-off series? Are they going to try to keep doing it for multiple seasons? Is it going to be this is one season and then it's going to be Monarch something else? Monarch, Legacy of Ghidorah. We don't know. We have no idea what they're trying to do. Is it looking to tie into the next Godzilla movie that's coming out next year?
It's called The New Empire.
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
Which I'm sure is going to tie in very tightly to the inner Earth that they find.
The Hollow Earth.
The Hollow Earth.
Yeah, he's chilling there now.
Yeah, so like move to the inner Earth, Hollow Earth. I'm sorry. At this point. Anyways, theories aside, wild tangents aside, let's move on to our episode ratings. Pause for dramatic effect. Wow. What is your rating?
I think I'll probably be the lowest out of the four of us, because I'd give it a 7. Because like I said at the beginning, there was a lot of like big high moments. I was like, damn, this is cool. This is awesome. But then there was those parts that just pissed me off, like the not paying off the cliffhanger from last week, Dragon. And just like a lot of times I just didn't feel as engaged, maybe because there was a lot more bouncing back and forth, maybe because I don't have as much knowledge as Godzilla as you guys do. I didn't get that much of like, whoa. But yeah, I still enjoy it, still keen to see where it goes. Still very interested, especially now after this cliffhanger, which please don't cut it off and do like, 2 years later, they're now in Cuba or something like that.
Oh, I hope it doesn't do a time jump. I hate time jumps like that. Like, come on.
Which is why I hated the past sequence in this episode. But if they do that, then it's like, God damn it, I'm going to strangle you. But that's why, I sit at a 7.
Fair.
How about you, Alex?
I would give this one an 8, and I would say that it's maybe aside from the first episode, because I like the introduction of our lead characters in that one. But I think that this is a really strong episode. There's a lot of stuff that like ties it into the movie and just kind of, echoes Godzilla lore in general. And so there's a lot of good things going on in this. I like that human connection when they find, their dad's probably alive. And there's just a lot that is really fun going on in this series. I really want to know where this is all going, because it's got its hooks in me now. And it sucks because I was just looking at like, there should be a new episode tonight or tomorrow. Nope, they're skipping a week.
It's every Friday.
They released it on a Wednesday, Friday, and then a Wednesday, and then now they're doing it on the 1st of December. And it's like, crap.
Yeah, so it's going back to Friday.
Wait a while. Yeah. So we can sit and think about it and get our crackpot theories on. But no, it's a cool show. I'm having a lot of fun. I think this is a great time to be into Godzilla, because there's just... There's so much effort being put into the American take on it. And then subsequently, there's a lot of effort being put into the Japanese take on it. because we have Godzilla -1 later this year.
So excited.
We're seeing it next week.
I
Next
can't wait.
Wednesday.
Next week.
I'm gonna have to drive like 3 hours to find a theater, but by God, we're doing it.
I'm going to give it an 8.5. I would have given it a 9.
You and your
But-
0.5s.
Yeah. but Duho. I'm very upset about that. So
Minus
I knocked
5.5
I
points.
nagged.
because of
I knocked
Duho.
0.5 for that. But yeah, the shots of Godzilla, like we had some serious lizard action, so I'm happy. I'm very happy about that. And the fact that it ties into 2014 and the fact that it's got the historical, like the bombing of Bikini Atoll and all that, like it's really cool. Like it was really, we were bombing Godzilla, not just doing nuclear testing. It's fine. So yeah, it was good. I definitely enjoyed the characters, the inner workings of the characters, and then the very tender moments, and then like the laughing and the fun and the angst. It was good. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Surprisingly good character writing for a monster thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we praised the first few episodes for the same thing, saying that like the writing is pretty decent and solid to like kind of like build up some of the characters. And for myself, my rating, I'm gonna be generous again and give it another 9, but that's because I'm a big old sucker Godzilla fan who has been through it all. I've seen the worst of it and I've seen the best of it, and I'm very happy to get all of the sweet Godzilla action. And there's a lot of moments in this episode with a lot of like hard geek out moments for me. Again, like to Tom's point, this is very much because of how ingrained I am in the series and how long I've been just a diehard Godzilla fan. So like there's multiple moments where I'm like, ooh, that's from the movie, and ooh, that references that, and ooh, you know, like there's a lot of like little things that like make my little Godzilla heart sing. So I'm really happy that the character dynamics are getting richer. I'm really happy that it's getting those hooks, like for you, Alex, talking about the character development, kind of like, okay, now I'm invested in these characters. Because normally in a Godzilla movie, there's always people, but you always don't give a crap about the people.
It's really hard to care in a lot of these
especially in
films.
like the old Shoho Godzilla movies. Like, what are these people? They serve no purpose. Like,
Says you. I love background character Zed. Shut up.
yeah, so
Ugh,
it's going to
a
be
mess
really
sometimes.
hard to disappoint me so far, because I'm just happy to be getting such a well written and highly produced show about Godzilla, which I never thought would ever happen. And you throw a little splash of Godzilla in there and I'm pretty happy. And then add in the extra monsters. Because for me, I'm like, which monsters am I going to see in the show? Expecting classic Godzilla characters and monsters.
Yeah.
But we're getting new and fresh ones and unique ones. And that's just, yay, more monsters.
Well,
They've all been pretty
I
interesting.
also love the fact that like Monarch's always been this thing in these stories and these monster movies, but this is telling us how Monarch came to be and like what Monarch is, and that's interesting to me. I like that.
I also like that they do the references and callbacks without being exceptionally obvious, like how some of the Marvel and DC film stuff is.
Yeah.
Like in the Flash movie, Batman shows up and it's like, man, Batman, and all the classic stuff. But in this, it's like they just show things and then don't elaborate any further, and that's totally fine. Like it's up to the fans to kind of like recognize certain imagery because they want you to be investigative, I think, in the show. That's cool. Great time to be a Godzilla fan. Holy shit.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Absolutely. I'm eating really well.
All we need is like one good video game and we're gonna be like, in the best decade.
Maybe this opens up some doors if we, as long as Game Mill doesn't make it.
Well, you don't know the Skull Island, whatever was it King Kong
Skull
Island?
Yeah, something.
Anyways,
they
before we go down that rabbit hole, we got to say good night. Alex, do you want to tell us about tell everyone about where they can find you?
Sure. So pretty much everything that I do creatively is available on foreverclassicgames.com. We're a completely ad-free, clutter-free games media, completely independently owned outlet. And so everything that we do is in our volunteer time. And we've done a lot of really cool interviews and reviews. And there's just a lot of excellent work available on that website. And then we also stream on occasion. Fighting games locally here in Minnesota is a big part of it. My buddy is actively doing a big charity run, so we're helping out with all these different local organizations, and it's just a really good time. And obviously, I'm at Stride PR during the day, and you should absolutely play more indie games. And boy, we got a bunch of good ones. A lot of good ones this time around. World of Horror, Slay the Princess, Ghost Runner 2. Like, these are all exceptionally cool games, and I work with them.
Can confirm Ghost Runner 2 is a banger.
It's a banger. I'm in the credits.
If we're talking about games, like there is a new Godzilla game that came out, Box of Wars, that I'm playing and reviewing now too. It's cute, it's fun, but it's not like a Godzilla game as you might hope for.
That's what I was waiting for. Have you done Gigabash?
Not yet. It's on my list.
Okay,
it's on my list.
You'll like that.
Yeah. So to shout us out here, myself, Brandy, Tom, we all work and write for Couch Soup and couchsoup.com. We make videos, we make fun podcasts, and we write stuff about anything and everything we want, because why not? So check us out over at Couch Soup, where you can watch this podcast. I think every Tuesday is where we're going to be landing on our schedule. Can't confirm yet, but maybe every Tuesday you can watch us over on youtube.com, and you can listen to us on your favorite podcasting platforms under the Watching Now header. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Alex, for being here for this. And
I have one more thing to shout out that I completely forgot about. Man. So my co-host in this whole endeavor, my lieutenant captain, his name is Zack Snyder, and it's spelled Z-A-C-H instead of Z-A-C-K. So for the entire run of our podcast, we've been like, oh, I'm Alex and this is Zack Snyder. No, not that one. And so we are doing a Zack Snyder director like film review, and that's a podcast series that starts coming out, I think on the 4th of December. So keep an eye out for those. We're checking out every single movie that he's directed, and we're going to go clear to Rebel Moon Part 2. So it's a fun time.
Interesting. I know people that would be interested in that for sure. All right. Anyways, again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Alex, for being here. Be sure to visit the website, see all the awesome articles and videos over there, and check it. Feed your hungry nerd soul. Until next week.
Cowabunga.
Watch more Godzilla, please.
Yes.
Watch all the Godzilla. Watch Son of Godzilla. Don't watch that movie.
That's the first one I ever saw.
Get your tinfoil hats on.
Do your best Charlie Day impersonation.
Alien.